Hi, my name is Carrie Orozco. If you're new to the vlog, you can also follow me at Carrieos on all social media platforms. And today I'm going to be talking all about having a nickel allergy. So basically, I'm just gonna be going over how apricots poisoned me, how my permanent retainer was poisoning me, and then how all of the healthy foods I was eating were also poisoning me. Oh, it's been a journey. I have had a nickel allergy for 2 years, and today I'm going to be sharing all of my photos. I documented it very well, and I'm going to be sharing my so far pretty successful treatment plan and everything that I've learned through my doctor and online and going through it myself, as well as sharing all of my favorite product swaps, all of the resources I've been using, my apps, my routines, all of it. And all that is also going to be linked down in the description. But this video is 100% intended to help you. So those are products I actually use. Those are resources that really helped me. When I was first diagnosed with a nickel allergy, there was almost no information online. I think there was like one blog named ihatenickel.com and then this single cookbook that taught me so much aside from going to my doctor. Now I think there's a lot more resources, but I remember when this first happened to me, I was devastated and there was not a lot of information. So I'm going to be sharing it all today. As a reminder, I am not a doctor. This is not medical advice. This is just my experience and what I've learned and what I've retained and am regurgitating to you. Let's start at the very beginning. What is a nickel allergy? Is a nickel allergy an autoimmune disease? So nickel is the most common metal allergen in the world. 20% of people who are tested for allergies in North America are positive for a nickel allergy, and women are 3 times more likely to be allergic to nickel than men. And yes, we're talking about nickel like on the periodic table of elements. Nickel is in a lot of traditionally manufactured metal goods. Think of anything stainless steel. But there's also trace amounts of nickel in soil and water, which is then taken in by plants and animals. Nickel can find its way internally into our systems by being absorbed through digestion, medical implants, fragrances, and smoke. Also, if you have a nickel allergy, it can wreak havoc on your skin by coming into direct contact. So think like jewelry. If you've ever worn a pair of cheap earrings and it's made your ears super itchy, you definitely have a mild nickel allergy. A nickel allergy is like any other allergy, like if you were allergic to shellfish or dogs. Your autoimmune system, which is responsible for eliminating threats and harmful invaders, at some point deems nickel unsafe and an invader. And that can cause hypersensitivity or, in severe cases, like mine, overreaction. After some triggering incident causing overexposure to nickel or ongoing exposure to nickel, your body creates an overabundance of eosinophils. Those are the blood cells that are responsible in causing allergic reaction. And basically they become hyperactive, moving your mild nickel allergy into a severe nickel allergy. And this is important to remember, and I'll talk about my triggering event in just a little bit. You can skip ahead if you want. What are the signs and symptoms of a nickel allergy? So for me, the most obvious signs were my reoccurring face and elbow rash. It was big, itchy, ugly, puffy, and I was always getting the same rash in the exact same spot on my face and on my left elbow. And then I would get all these little smaller patches that would move around on my cheeks, on my nose, around my lips, and on my chin. That would happen pretty consistently almost every 2 weeks. Some incidents were a lot closer where there was only 3 or 4 days between rash breakouts. And as my nickel allergy improved, sometimes I would go 3 weeks without a rash, but they were pretty consistent and showed up the same way every single time. Now, the more medical answer is that a nickel allergy a lot of time kind of presents or looks like eczema or psoriasis. The hands and feet are the most common areas for these rashes to occur, but it also can show up on your face, elbows, and around the mouth, which is what I experienced. Another common symptom is getting blisters on your hands and feet. Oh, that's awful. There's also a lot of cutaneous symptoms, which are other symptoms and problems people have that seem to be very closely tied to having a nickel allergy. So these are symptoms that started about the same time as people's nickel allergy, and also will start to go away or improve as you start to heal your autoimmune system. This is the official list, but is not limited to IBS, chronic fatigue, obesity, endometriosis, heartburn, celiac disease, nausea, vomiting, asthma, headache, thyroid conditions, burning mouth syndrome, and fibromyalgia. So it's crazy to think that nickel might be causing some of your very big medical conditions. I myself experienced some cutaneous symptoms that are not on that list, and after talking to my doctor and doing a little bit more research, I absolutely think that they are related to my unhealthy autoimmune system as a result of my nickel allergy. Some medical problems I've had as a result of my nickel allergy are now I am very sensitive in the sun. My skin burns and blisters very easily. Even if I'm wearing sunscreen, I have to constantly be reapplying, and I really can't sit out in the sun for more than a couple hours without going in the shade, covering up with a hat and a shirt, which is crazy. I grew up in the desert. I used to swim all summer long. I always was laying out tanning. Now there is no way I could spend enough time in the sun to tan at all. My skin would burn. This has also been very unpleasant, but bug bites have become a huge problem for me. Mosquitoes and other biting bugs have always been attracted to me, and I'm responsible enough to know not to scratch a bug bite and indulge in the itch. But now when I get bit by bug, it is like there is something crawling under my skin. The itch is unreal. I have to scratch it. My bug bites turn into big welts and they just feel uncontrollable. And I know that kind of sounds silly and maybe like not that big of a deal, but it has really interfered with a lot of vacations I've been on because I am so uncomfortable, and it has scarred my skin as a result of scratching the uncontrollable itchy bug bites. And the last thing, which I am not sure is related to my nickel allergy, for the last 2 years, my hair has been falling out significantly more than usual. Now, I'm lucky I have a lot of hair, but obviously it was concerning. I was even going to the dermatologist to get steroid injections and medical shampoo because I couldn't figure out what was wrong. And recently on one of my TikTok videos, someone DM'd me and asked me if my hair was falling out as a result of my nickel allergy. And although I can't pinpoint it specifically to my nickel allergy, to me that makes complete sense. It started about the same time, and as of recently, my hair has been falling out less and less as I've been healing my immune system. So I definitely think those two are tied together. What testing did I do to get diagnosed with a nickel allergy? So be aware that a nickel allergy, I feel like, is still kind of new. So a lot of doctors, dermatologists, and allergists may not be that familiar with a nickel allergy and it causing rashes and secondary symptoms. I went to a dermatologist and an allergist about the same time simultaneously. When I saw the dermatologist, they were like, that's definitely eczema or psoriasis. They both look the same in their infancy. They gave me a steroid cream and sent me home. But after reoccurring events, I was freaking out about this giant rash on my face. They decided to do additional testing to rule out any other autoimmune issues like lupus. And after a blood test and a punch test, they both came back that my eosinophil levels were very high, which is allergy related. So simultaneously, I was going to the allergist and we had to do blood work to rule out any other obvious medical conditions that may be causing this. I also did a prick test and a patch test. My blood work came back with sky-high eosinophil levels, so it was definitely an allergy. And my patch test came back, it was clearly a nickel allergy. So I want to say a huge shout out to Dr. Herman at the Las Vegas Skin and Cancer Clinic in Las Vegas. If you are in the Las Vegas area, I would highly recommend him. He is an expert allergist and he is so nice and so knowledgeable. And without him, I don't think I ever would have figured out that this was a nickel allergy and how to get better. So what triggered my severe nickel allergy? You can actually see this happening in real time in my older vlogs. I think I was in Sardinia. I was at a farmer's market and they had the best apricots I had ever tasted in my whole entire life. They were so juicy and delicious. So I got this big bag full of them and I was eating them all day long. Like I could not stop eating them. I had to have eaten 30 or 40 in one sitting. I was thinking to myself like, oh my gosh, this is gonna make me sick. I'm eating too much fruit, but they were so delicious. I could not stop eating them. And little did I know how sick they were going to make me. Apricots are very high in nickel and I basically just overdosed on them, which is crazy. Like I still cannot believe that is why I'm going to be allergic to nickel for the rest of my life. What is the treatment for a nickel allergy? As soon as we figured out that I was allergic to nickel, my doctor was basically like, so do you think that this is something topical that's causing these reactions or something internal? And because I had been traveling a lot and it had been months that this rash was happening over and over and over again before I finally had a diagnosis, I definitely thought it was something I was eating or something internal, because it wasn't my sheets, it wasn't the detergent I was using, it wasn't my makeup or skincare, and I didn't think it was like my ice roller or anything I was putting on my face, because it was also happening on my elbow. So we agreed that it was probably a digestion issue. The key to reducing your overreactivity is to keep your exposure to nickel under your personal body's reaction threshold. So what that means is you are trying to eliminate all of the different points of exposure to nickel. So if you have a contact dermatitis allergy, then you are going to try to reduce or eliminate your exposure by not touching things with nickel and then using medicine to help control the overreactivity that your body is creating. If you have a dietary nickel allergy, then going on a low nickel elimination diet is definitely going to be step one. I am also on Dupixent, which is a self-injected medication, and this is to help the overreaction of my eosinophil levels. Basically, my autoimmune system was just too traumatized for the low nickel diet to work all on its own. So the low nickel diet and Dupixent combination really did help my reaction. It didn't eliminate my rash, but it did help control it. Every single appointment, my doctor was drilling me on what is the largest exposure. Basically, you are still coming into contact with too much nickel. In this process, appointment after appointment, we are going one step further and one step further to try to eliminate my exposure. In this process, I changed my cookware, I changed my drinkware. I went from a hydro flask to a glass water bottle. I cut out foods with added sugar and processed foods, which aren't necessarily high in nickel, but that does clog up your autoimmune system when it's trying to heal and eliminate those overreactive blood cells. I switched my water, so now I only drink distilled water. I also took out my permanent retainer, which was a huge risk because it was kind of a guess, but I am very excited to tell you more about that in a little bit. What food should you avoid if you have a nickel allergy? As I said, a low nickel elimination diet is definitely going to be step one if you are diagnosed with a nickel allergy. Basically, some foods are higher in nickel than others, but all foods have trace amounts of nickel in them. It is impossible to eat a zero nickel diet. A standard low nickel diet requires you to eat under 150 micrograms of nickel per day. This book that I got off of Amazon was very, very helpful, and there is a free app called Nickel Navigator, which is going to be your new best friend. If you have a nickel allergy, you need the Nickel Navigator app, and that is going to be how you're able to calculate all of the nickel that you are ingesting per serving, per grams, every single day. I think in the beginning, the hardest part of eating a low nickel diet is it isn't obvious which foods are bad for you. There are foods in every single food group that seemingly have nothing in common except for this invisible fact that they're all very high in nickel. And then the same food, whether it's cooked or uncooked, can be dramatically different, higher or lower in its level of nickel. So there's no type of like intuition initially of what foods you can and can't eat. You have to just kind of memorize this list and know what foods are safe versus unsafe. I've also found this really difficult to explain to others when I'm talking about my nickel allergy and when I'm eating out. And that is because I'm not allergic to any one food. I'm allergic to the amount of nickel that I'm ingesting and intaking, which can be different per food, per serving, cooked versus uncooked. It's really hard to keep track of, especially in food that you're not preparing yourself. The standard recommendation is to eat under 150 micrograms of nickel per day. Now that's what I stayed under. Basically, I tried to eat as low of nickel as I possibly could every single day just to make sure there was no chance that I was going to go over that threshold, because I was determined to cure myself. I would eat the safest foods possible, and I would basically make large quantities of them, weigh them, organize them, put them in the fridge, and just eat that for days and days and days to make sure that I wasn't anywhere close to going over my nickel threshold in the beginning. Now that I've had a nickel allergy for 2 years, I kind of know what foods are safe. I do mostly eat those most of the time, but I try to stay so far under my threshold, so if I go out to dinner or if I'm eating with friends, I'm not worried about triggering my nickel allergy. I thought this would be a fun little add-in. Here are foods that are high in nickel. So this is per serving, and remember that you are trying to stay under 150 micrograms all day long, 24 hours, 7 days a week. I told you that my nickel allergy was triggered by apricots. Apricots are 23.8 micrograms per serving. A serving of apricots is about 4. So let's say I ate 30 apricots that day, which would have been easy. I probably ate more than that. But that would have been 178 micrograms of nickel, which triggered my now permanent nickel allergy. Chocolate is 71 micrograms. Energy drinks, 30. Prune juice, 35. Basically all nuts are very, very high in nickel, but cashews and pecans are the highest that come in at 170 micrograms per serving. Tofu comes in at 102 micrograms. Basically all beans, you're done eating beans, but cooked black beans are 112 micrograms per serving. Cooked mussels, 57 micrograms. Scallops, very closely related, 176 micrograms. Peas, 35. Seaweed, 20. Coconut, 100. Avocados, 42 micrograms. Wild rice, 148 micrograms. Cooked buckwheat pasta, you know, those pasta alternatives so you can stay nice and skinny and not eat the carbs, 396 micrograms. Seeded bread, 29 micrograms. Oat milk, you know those oat milk lattes you drink? No more, 35 micrograms of nickel. Cashew milk, even worse, 70 micrograms. There are some foods that are low in nickel. Whipped cream is 0.048 micrograms per serving. Grapefruit, 4 micrograms. Apples, 3 micrograms. Onions, 3 micrograms. Lettuce, 5 micrograms. Olives and pickles are 1 microgram. So pickle girlies, you're safe. Now for protein, rabbit is the lowest, and that is going to be 1.4 micrograms per serving, but beef is only 1.9 microgram per serving. Bacon is 0.78 micrograms per serving, although it's probably not recommended that that is your only protein of choice. I am very happy to announce that fish roe, you know me, I'm a caviar queen, is only 0.54 micrograms of nickel per serving. Cooked shrimp is 2 micrograms, pretzels are 4 micrograms, and mayonnaise is 2 micrograms. But as you can see, foods like scallops, chocolate, oat milk, and avocados have basically nothing to do with each other, but they are all high nickel foods. Like I said, if you find out that you are allergic to nickel, or you want to see if you're allergic to nickel and just try out this low nickel diet, you need to run, not walk, and go download that Nickel Navigator app, which is where I got all of this information from. It's free, it has a food journal, and it is going to help you calculate your microgram level of nickel per serving of food. Some things that did really help me when trying to eat low nickel are this cookbook, because it is actually very hard to kind of know once you weigh ingredients and then cook them and you're trying to combine them, it becomes very hard to weigh them and calculate the microgram level. So some of the easy recipes in here really help me with that, but also so did buying a food scale. And also Tupperware containers where I could like pre-cook rice or weigh different amounts of grapes, cheese, apple slices, and then just already know what the microgram level of that entire little snack container was, so I didn't have to go through and recalculate it every single day when I wanted lunch or a snack or an easy breakfast. I am so excited for this portion of the video. Did getting your permanent retainer removed cure your nickel allergy? So I'm going to say yes. Now, you can never be cured of an allergy. Once you are allergic, you are always going to be allergic. But as far as my blood work goes, and as far as my rash reaction goes, yeah, I would say that getting it removed did cure my nickel allergy. So I talk about this a lot on TikTok, so if you want more specifics or more information, you can go onto my TikTok. I have a playlist called Nickel Allergy where I talk very specifically about getting my permanent retainer removed and what I think it did for my nickel allergy. Basically, after months of doing the low nickel diet, taking my medication, making all of the swaps, adjusting my lifestyle, I was still being exposed to nickel somewhere. It was triggering my reaction. My allergist was like, it's gotta be something, you gotta figure it out. What's the next most likely thing that's causing this? I had been feeling for a while that I might want to remove my permanent retainer since it was a big hunk of metal that was sitting in my mouth, and nickel is metal and I'm having digestive issues. But it just seemed like a big risk to take it out, and honestly very costly. It also just seemed like a huge deal. Like, this is something that's permanently glued to the back of my teeth. I've had it since I was a kid. It keeps my teeth straight. When I presented it to my allergist, he was like, yeah, that could be it. We should check it. Some people are allergic to their dental fillings or their medical implants. Him just kind of being like, yeah, that could be it. There was no way for him to know for sure, but I didn't know if I was convinced. So I went and talked to my dentist. Shout out to Dr. Najand. If you are in Las Vegas, you have to go and see him at the dentist. He is #1. He is the best. And he actually made me feel a lot more confident and comfortable about taking out my permanent retainer. He was basically saying that the permanent retainers we got as kids are just not as good as the ones they put in now. They're very different. And also, like any other medical implants or implants that you get surgically implanted in your body whatsoever, they start to deteriorate over time, and a lot of times they do need to be replaced. They also told me that older permanent retainers are usually made with lesser metals, like surgical stainless steel, which basically doesn't mean anything when it comes to nickel allergies. Like, hypoallergenic and surgical steel are still full of nickel, and so that can't be trusted. So I'm 31 and I've had my permanent retainer since I was, I don't know, like 12 or 13. And Dr. Najand was like, yeah, that definitely could be it. And he offered to take it out for me. And then we decided to replace my permanent retainer with plastic Invisalign retainers so that my teeth don't shift. So I went in for my appointment, he removed it, I got scanned for my Invisalign retainers, and not to be dramatic, but I noticed an immediate difference. So I think I'd just been living with this for so long, I immediately noticed that my tongue did not feel fuzzy anymore, which I think was a sensation I had just gotten used to, but I think because it was sitting behind my back teeth, I don't know, it just always felt a little prickly, maybe even a little numb, and I immediately noticed that was gone, which was crazy. But I am so happy to tell you that I have not had a single nickel allergy, rash, or reaction since I've got my permanent retainer removed. And that was back in November of 2024, and it is currently July of 2025, which is, it's amazing. I am so grateful to Dr. Najand for removing my permanent retainer, because it just felt like I was trying so hard. I was doing everything right, and I was just so discouraged that I wasn't healing and I wasn't getting better, and I was dealing with this giant rash on my face, and him removing my permanent retainer completely changed things for me. And I can't tell you how insecure, discouraged, and just depressed about my rash I was. It was so embarrassing, and it sucked. Him offering to remove my permanent retainer, making me feel comfortable with that decision, and encouraging me to do it, and giving me more information about the metal of permanent retainers and how they degrade over time, just all of it. I am so grateful for him, because it is the best thing I have done in my nickel allergy journey. So thank you very, very much, Dr. Najand. What are some non-medical things you can do to help support your low nickel diet? Aside from being on your low nickel diet and maybe taking medication, there are some more holistic ways to kind of help your body's natural ability to heal and release nickel. Drink water, exercise, get lots of sleep, de-stress, blah, blah, blah. We all know we're supposed to be doing these things, but obviously the healthier you are, the easier it is for your body to naturally heal and recover. So sorry to break it to you, but all of those things are still important when it comes to a low nickel diet. Reduce your exposure from cigarettes, vape smoke, and pollution. So you can also go to saunas and steam rooms and sweat out any excess nickel in your system, but you need to shower immediately after so that it's not just sitting on your skin and getting reabsorbed. Taking vitamin C with every single meal has shown to be beneficial with trying to support your autoimmune system and your nickel allergy. Taking probiotics, intermittent fasting, and keeping your eating within an 8-hour period can also be very helpful. Talk to your doctor, but basically then your body isn't trying to fight your ingested nickel 24/7 if you're like snacking all the time. It has to work in a concentrated period of time. Eating an animal-based diet, eating organic, and using nickel-free cookware are going to be the best ways to kind of work within the low nickel diet and to optimize that. So sorry, vegetarians, and being vegan, I feel like is impossible on a low nickel diet. That is probably not good news for a lot of people, and you might have to make some tough decisions. Sorry. Ooh, I also really love this question. Would you recommend changing your jewelry for a nickel allergy? Yes, 100% I would. So back when I first got a nickel allergy, this kind of just happened organically. I got a brand deal for Tiny Lux, which is a hypoallergenic jewelry company. And I know I told you that like hypoallergenic and nickel allergy, just it kind of means nothing in today's day and age. But on their website, they actually have a lot of information about the different metals that they use and the different metals that are in like surgical steel and other jewelry that people typically are highly allergic to. So after looking at that, I went and I changed all of my jewelry. So I basically only wear Tiny Lux earrings now on my lobes. These are Tiny Lux. I don't have a code, I don't have a current brand deal with them, but I do really love their jewelry. Before I could only wear cheap little earrings for maybe an hour before they would start to like irritate my ears. If I wore them all night, I'd have to take them out and then not wear earrings for a couple days. But these I can sleep in, shower in, and I have no problems for weeks. I can wear them as long as I want. But after reading all the information on Tiny Lux, I also decided to change my belly button piercing and my industrial piercing. I decided to get a late in life belly button piercing at 30, and it was not healing. I had in the surgical steel piercer grade belly button ring for a very long time, and I was still getting little bumps. It was getting crusty, and it wasn't healing. And as soon as I changed to a pure gold belly button ring, which was kind of pricey, I've not had a single problem since. It instantly healed. I had no bumps, no crust, nothing. So after that, then I invested in a pure gold industrial bar. And this is jewelry I keep in 24/7, but when I got it done, it would not heal. It probably took me 3 years to heal my industrial piercing, and I've ever since then sworn to never get another cartilage piercing, so I was like, my body hates this. But really, what I think it hated was the surgical steel piercing jewelry that they gave me. It just didn't work for me. I would highly recommend reconsidering switching all of your jewelry and adjusting accordingly. Is having a nickel allergy hard or inconvenient? Yes, I have cried so much. It is very hard and very discouraging to feel like you're doing everything right and you're dramatically changing your lifestyle and you can't eat the things you want to do and you can't go out with your friends and you have no idea why you're not getting better. It sucks. It sucks to feel like you're doing everything right and nothing is working. I also had a huge rash on my face. It was itchy, red, puffy, uncomfortable. It would last for days. It was kind of hard to cover up with makeup. I could cover up the color, but not the texture. And I was embarrassed. I thought everyone was staring at me. And when I wasn't covering it with makeup, people would literally gasp when they saw my face when I would have a reaction. It looked gross. I feel like people, especially strangers in public, would think I was like contagious or something. It felt awful. Dupixent is an incredible medication, but it hurts. I cry a lot before I have to take my shot and trying to hype myself up to give myself the injection because it hurts so bad. I have avoided taking it. I've skipped some of my injections because I just literally could not bring myself to inject myself because it hurts so bad. It's been kind of expensive. Eating a low nickel diet, eating organic, eating a lot of meat, which I wasn't really doing before. It's time consuming to cook all that food and it's expensive to cook all that food. I had to change all of my cookware. That cost money. I got a water distilled machine, which cost a lot of money, and I'm happy I did it. I'm happy I spent the money, and I am going to use these things for the rest of my life and repurchase the things that work because I'm forever going to have a nickel allergy. But yeah, it sucks. And you saw how emotional I got when I was talking about getting my personal retainer removed, and it just is so authentic because I'm so grateful. I'm grateful for my doctor, pushing me to come on, like it's 3 months later, like what could it be? That didn't work. It has to be something else. We were really working on it together and he was pushing me to figure it out to get better. And I'm also grateful for Dr. Najand for making me feel comfortable about what I thought was kind of a big decision, which I realize in the grand scheme of things, it's kind of a small one, but it was a guess. And he made me feel very comfortable about making the choice to get my permanent retainer removed, and it worked. And I'll forever be grateful to him for that. I also get kind of hard on myself about overindulging and basically making myself permanently sick. There's no way that I could have known that overeating apricots was going to make me permanently ill. It sounds silly saying it out loud, but it did. And it's one of those things where I even said it, like, I know this is gonna make me sick, but I just can't stop. And it seems if I could just go back in time, I obviously would, but this is 100% my fault. I did this to myself and I'm gonna be dealing with those consequences forever. And even though I'm learning to work around it and my life is a little different, and at this point in my nickel allergy journey, I'm not all that inconvenienced, I still can get really hard on myself because I did this to myself by just doing something stupid, by just overindulging. And if I could take it back, I would. What are your favorite alternative products and resources after finding out that you're allergic to nickel? This book was the only low nickel cookbook I could find anywhere on the internet 2 years ago when I was first diagnosed. I think there's other cookbooks you can buy on Amazon now, which is great. The more resources, the better. But this one was very, very helpful to me. My water distill machine, this glass water bottle, it's by Bink. I love this. I don't have an affiliate link to this, but this has been my water bottle and it's been amazing. I used to have a glass water bottle from Amazon and it would break all the time. So this one is the move. I probably bought 4 of those glass water bottles that I broke from Amazon before switching to this one. So this one is the move. I have switched to all ceramic cookware. That I feel like was a big deal. Like I said, I love the brand Tiny Lux. And a huge, huge, huge thank you to Nickel Navigator, the app. I would not be able to eat low nickel without that. Dr. Herman in Las Vegas for helping me with my low nickel allergy, and Dr. Najand for removing my permanent retainer. Thank you so much. Okay, and that is basically the very broad view of everything I have for you on having a nickel allergy. I have a playlist on TikTok that has a bunch of short videos that go into very specific details about my nickel allergy journey and getting my permanent retainer removed. So if you want, I will link that down below in the description and you can go and check that out. But if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below and I will try to answer them if I can. And if I get enough comments, maybe I'll make a follow-up video about nickel allergies. But I remember when I was diagnosed, there just wasn't a lot of information. Nobody had heard of it. Nobody I knew had heard of it. And it was so hard to find information, and I would have killed for a video like this. I hope this has been very helpful because I know how challenging and disruptive and discouraging finding out you have a nickel allergy can be, especially eating the low nickel diet. It is not easy, especially when you start. I am rooting for you. I've worked so hard to try to improve my autoimmune health and to cure my nickel allergy, and it is absolutely worth it. Okay, and that's about it. Make sure you like this video, leave a comment if you have any questions, and subscribe to my channel. You can also follow me on all social media accounts at Carrios, and I will see you next week. Bye guys. Here's just a closer look. As soon as it pops up on my face, it immediately starts to get worse. Like, it'll be really faint in the morning, and then within 24 hours it'll get really red, really puffy. There's no like rim on it, but on the top sometimes I'll get little red spots, and it'll react at the same time as my elbow. Now, I don't know now if it's working with the steroid cream, like if that's what's making it pop, but even before I had the steroid cream, it would do this. You can also see I get like a little patch on my lip. Sometimes it's like in multiple spots. It looks like this time it's only in one spot, and it'll get really itchy. So I have to be really diligent about putting the steroid cream on it and not making it worse, because one time I was itching it and it did get like dry and flaky, almost like a scab.